I think the top three reasons why girls are most sexually active, I think one would be um, peer pressure. I know if you confide in your friends more than your parents when you're talking about sex and you find out that your friends are being sexually active, then you become curious and not being able to ask. You're not being able to feel comfortable to ask your parents about it, then you're more driven to trying it out yourself. A second reason would be maybe, again, as I mentioned earlier, just being in a committed relationship, and maybe girls don't even think about having sex until they are in this relationship, and maybe their partner brings it up and it becomes a discussion between the two to decide whether or not they're ready. The third, this is a tough one. The third would probably be maybe just it's just something to do. Maybe if they don't have other things to do, just being sexually active would be a way to kind of network or kind of get to know people, or just something to do as an extracurricular activity. I don't know. So just finding something to do. Yeah, it's just another option.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good. And just, to draw from what you said, do you think family support in a relationship is a factor in the decision to be sexually active or even get pregnant? For example, if you don't like your home life, do you see pregnancy as a way out for certain girls or for yourself?
I wouldn't see pregnancy as a way out if I don't like my home life, just because I would see it as a way to tie me even more to my home life, because having a child is a big responsibility. So I think I would have to turn to my family to help me. So rather than leaving my family, it would be another factor in tying me to them. So I think pregnancy results out of a lack of communication. So if there isn't communication, there isn't that education in sexual health, then you just kind of go about exploring on your own, and then most of the time it's probably an accident, it's not a planned pregnancy. So accidents, again, I know girls who have become pregnant, but I don't think that it's gotten to a point where they're stable enough, like financially stable, to move out of their homes. I think, again, it ties them to their family. So they live at home. They look to their parents as caretakers when they have to kind of grow up quickly and get a job and just become responsible for another person.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that the current teen pregnancy prevention programs are effective or culturally relevant to Latinas?
I don't think they're effective, just because I have a friend who is a sex ed teacher for Planned Parenthood, and she's a Caucasian female, and she talks about how she experiences a culture clash when she goes to middle schools and teaches these seventh graders, because even talking about things like using tampons, she tells me how she's never heard of mom saying, "Oh, you don't use that because you're a virgin, and if you use that, that means that you're not a virgin anymore." So I think it's helpful in the sense that it introduces students, or it introduces Latinas to sexual health, but it's not because it's not reinforced by family values that they encounter at home. So they're hearing two different things from maybe mainstream society who's trying to educate them, and then when they go back home, it's not culturally acceptable to kind of take on certain things that they're being taught in the classroom.
That's right. You think there's a difference between pregnancy in Mexico versus the US? Do you think these teens will have gotten pregnant if they were still in Mexico or in Latin America, or what do you think?
I don't know much about pregnancy in Mexico, but when I think about being a woman in Mexico, I think about working hard to sustain your family, even if you do have a husband. I think it might be the same, but being that in Mexico, you still have those values where you have to be a homemaker, and sometimes you find yourself in a financial situation where you do have to help your husband. But I think here in the United States, I think it's different in that sometimes Latinas have more spare time. Maybe they don't do things to kind of maximize their capabilities. So they kind of shortchange themselves in that, okay, well, I've gotten pregnant, so that's where my career ends. I'm just going to stay at home. And sometimes they do work, but I think, I don't have a child, so I don't know how hard it is, but I can only imagine how hard it is to have a child and then continue to aspire to achieve a career. So I think it might be different in the sense that in Mexico, it's more like, oh, you have to work and sustain your family. Whereas here, it's a little more, since, the minimum wage is higher, you get paid more. It's a little more lenient in the sense that you don't have to work as hard as others may. But I think the situation is still the same, just cultural values that tell you that you have to be a homemaker, that when you become pregnant, maybe abortion isn't an option due to like religious reasons again. So I think the values are still the same, but the circumstances in each country are different.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Okay.